Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, Rabbi.
How's everyone doing?
Good.
Good. Excuse me one moment. Just realized I didn't clean my glasses this morning. So glad we had a reminder that it was winter yesterday. I've already forgotten. Well, we just lost Carol. Hi,
Shalom, Rav Papi. How are you?
Good. How are you doing?
Baruch Hashem. Baruch Hashem, Yom Yom. That's what Brenda and I are learning now. Psalm 68, the toughest psalm in the entire, what's called Psalter.
Psalter, yes. No new grandchildren, right? Oh, I mean, you've had a few, so that's
You mean, I think, great
grandchildren. That's what I
can't
meant.
possibly mean grandchildren, right?
No.
Great
Grandchildren.
No, it's not up to us, Rav Papi. We have absolutely nothing to do with it except what we did originally.
Right, but it's still nice.
It's still nice, but it sometimes feels a little bit strange. Like, you wake up in the morning and somehow or other, I mean, if the next great-grandchild is born, we're going to have as many great-grandchildren as this Shvatim. But what do we do? Somehow it's if you get the call, you make the announcement, but it's that somehow you don't really feel like you directly were involved in it. Your involvement is at such a distance that you forget what you did in the first place. It's just sort of, in other words, I mean, we were raising children in our 20s. Okay. I mean, one of my it just seems so long ago, yes, you know exactly how this all came about, but, you could draw it on a map, you understand, but you don't feel it that much, except when they bring the great-grandchildren to the house, then you feel it.
Yeah.
We don't go anywhere now. Everybody comes to us. You understand what I'm saying? So, of course, that means everybody has to put on there. And we can't have more than a few people in each individual room. Everything has to be broken up, but, it's still wonderful when they come. And periodically I'll put a picture or two on my Facebook page of one of them. I haven't done that lately, but that's because, I don't know, when Facebook started, it was like something people really wanted to get on. Now it somehow seems to be the yesterday's thing, and it doesn't have. It's sort of lost its cachet.
Well, Facebook is for older people.
Put a picture on it.
Younger people use other stuff. Facebook, that's for us.
Well, it's just somehow or other. I don't know. It's just I don't run to put when a great-grandchild or two visits here. I don't run to put their picture on the page like I used to. It's just I get old. You just like I said, Baruch Hashem, Yom Yom.
Yep. And hopefully we can say it, Yom Yom. Yes,
I should say Yom Yom. Oh, Rabbi Zucker, Carol, Charlotte,
Yes.
I don't know if my video is working. Can you hear
I
me?
see, Rabbi Zucker, you're talking about that book tomorrow night. That book really looks like hot stuff. A fellow from Aria University is sitting there talking about how Torah didn't get started observed till the time of the Chashmonayim. What's he doing in Aria University if that's what his point of view?
It's an interesting.
I mean, Aria University.
And he's a musmach. He's a musmach from the chief rabbinate. That's the interesting part.
You know him personally?
No, I don't.
Okay. I mean, I understand why Yale University Press would publish something like that, but I find it a little hard to, when I saw that he came from Yale University and that's what he was writing, I said, my
Oh,
God,
okay, Charlotte.
don't they have woke people in Israel the way they do here? How's he getting away with that? It sounds like a reverse version of the 1619 project.
What
Phil,
he's
you're
basically
here?
saying, is, as an archaeologist, not as a rabbi, but as an archaeologist, the physical evidence does not point to an earlier establishment of Judaism, not ancient. He's not talking about ancient Israelite religion. He's not saying.
Well, we all knew that.
Wait a second. Is somebody
but
speaking other than
Judaism-
Daniel?
Excuse me?
I only hear Daniel. Rabbis.
Yeah.
I'm hearing something.
Well, tell me what you're going to say by email. Did you have it written out?
Yeah,
Send it to me in an email, okay? Because I'm not going to be able to.
yeah, I'll send it to you.
Sorry.
I'll send it to you, let's say Shabbat.
Very nice. Thank you very much.
Sure.
Everybody
That'll
okay?
be- Yeah, let Rabbi Poppy can start.
Yeah. Everybody okay?
Yeah, I hear something like a moaning or a groaning.
Yeah.
Sounds like a baby.
Charlotte, okay? Charlotte just muted.
Maybe it was her.
Yeah.
Somebody's got a baby?
Can you hear me?
We can hear you fine, Carol. We see
Oh,
you fine.
okay. I didn't think so. Okay. Good.
Charlotte?
I don't see Charlotte either. Maybe she just walked away for a second.
Okay, had to get the phone.
Charlotte, you need to unmute.
She's probably not at the desk, Rabbi Poppy. She probably stepped off for a minute,
But I'm just a little concerned about what I hear.
No, but
Do you have her phone number? Give her a call.
that sound is not coming from her since she is on mute.
Right.
What sound?
There's a sound in
Like
the
a
background.
baby or something.
It was like a moaning sound.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
I don't hear.
okay, good.
Don't hear it now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Anyway, let's get to Parashat Bo, which
All
of
right.
course, just about
Coming,
which is exciting and conclude the narrative of the plagues, and all of the drama that's associated with it. And we have the Israelites beginning to leave Egypt. And then we also have, of course, within this parasha, the rules for Pesach and what will be called Pesach Mitzrayim, the Pesach that is celebrated in Egypt. And then we have a number of other commemorative rituals. And those are the ones that I want to look at. Because generally, for example, when we think of the mitzvah of tefillin, what verses come to mind?
Shema Levi'ahavta.
All right, Shema and V'ahavta, because we say those every day. Not that we don't say these others, depending on what your particular custom is. But we generally think of the tefillin in regards to the Shema, where they appear in Sefer Devarim, but actually they occur sooner, and that is in our parasha. But let's take a look at the overall context, and then because I think what's interesting here is what is the role of ritual? What is the purpose, for example, of tefillin in particular, but in general, what is the purpose of ritual?
All right, could you say mitzvah instead of ritual? I get so turned off when you say that about something like putting on tefillin.
Well, it's mitzvot, but sometimes there's a ritual, and it works in
Ritual makes it,
general.
ritual is a put down, whereas mitzvah makes it sound
Not
like it's-
necessarily, Yudi, not necessarily. You could interpret it that way, but not necessarily.
Yeah,
So,
and that's
Miss
certainly not
Moses,
how
there's
I'm
a
using
better
it.
way to explain.
That it's habitual, that's something you do more than once.
Yeah.
Right,
Now,
it's
the problem,
semantics, just.
yeah, let's ignore that, but also it is true that ritual is not a great term because there is no word for ritual in Hebrew. I mean, we have a word pulhan, but that doesn't really
Avodah.
capture it. Yeah,
Avodah is the word.
avodah.
I mean,
is
if
the
you said
closest.
minhag, but it's not minhag.
No, it's
No,
not
no,
minhag.
Avodah is
I
the
know.
closest
So-
word.
So anyway, let's just take a look at the text, look at these actions, and lead us into
In
more
fact, it even
theoretical
says it in
discussion.
our parsha. V'avadata et ha'avodah hazo b'chodesh hazeh.
Yeah. So
So
that is
that's the
definitely
closest word you're
a better
It certainly doesn't mean ritual the way the Tanakh says it, and at least not the way we would understand it today. It would simply mean, we have to go with word avodah is all over the Torah. And
Right.
basically it has so many different connotations. Ritual, 1 out of 10 times might fit that word. Okay. So it's sort of to take that word in English and slap it onto chapter 13 of Shemot. In Hebrew it works, but in English it doesn't. If
Yeah.
you say you're talking about avodah, that's okay.
Well, let's
If
take
you
a look
take it
at the
from a
avodah. Let's
ritual, it's
actually
not.
look at the parasha. I think we understand that that's, the English translations are never adequate. Okay, who would like to read?
I'll
I'm
read,
reading.
Rabbi.
Charlotte? Okay, thank you.
Yes. The Lord spoke further to Moses, saying, consecrate to me every firstborn, man and beast. The first issue of every womb among the Israelites is mine.
So, first commandment, of course, firstborn things go to God. And of course, that's where we come up with the notion of the Pidyon Haben, because the firstborn son is supposed to go to God, and we redeem the child.
I did
Okay.
that. We
Yep.
did that with my eldest. And I had a friend who had a cesarean, and she wasn't allowed to have this
Right.
consecration.
Mhm.
And Moses said to the people, remember this day on which you went free from Egypt, the house of bondage, how the Lord freed you from it with a mighty hand. No leavened bread shall be eaten. You shall go free on this day in the month of Abib, so that when the Lord has brought you into the land of the Canaanites, the Hittites, the Amorites, the Hivites, the Jebusites, which he swore to your fathers to give you, a land flowing with milk and honey, you shall observe in this month the following practice. 7 days you shall
That's a
eat.
good word.
Which word?
Practice.
Oh,
Very imaginative word for avodah.
Mhm.
7 days you shall eat unleavened bread, and on the 7th day there shall be a festival of the Lord. Throughout the 7 days, unleavened bread shall be eaten. No leavened bread shall be found with you, and no leaven shall be found in all your territory. And you shall explain to your son on that day, it is because of, where am I?
At the
What
top.
the Lord did for me when I went free from Egypt.
Okay, so clearly talking about Pesach, or at least the Chag HaMatzot, and what is the purpose of this practice? What does it serve? What purpose does it serve?
It's a
Remember the
reminder.
Exodus.
Yeah, a reminder of what?
The Exodus.
The Exodus, right? That, on this day you went out from Egypt. So it's very clearly an annual celebration to remember that we went out from Egypt. But it goes on.
He
And
doesn't say went out, it says going out. In other words, I get the feeling that this is being said to them pretty much as they're leaving or
Yes,
the
yes,
immediate,
yeah. Sorry, I wasn't careful with my words. Go on, Charlotte.
And this shall serve you as a sign on your hand and as a reminder on your forehead, in order that the teaching of the Lord may be in your mouth that with a mighty hand the Lord freed you from Egypt. You shall keep this institution at a set time from year to year.
Okay.
And when the
So no, stop. And this shall serve you as a sign. V'zot, sorry, I can't read the Hebrew here. V'haya lecha la'ot al yadcha u'lzikaron bein einecha. And this shall serve you as a sign on your hand and as a reminder on your forehead. What will serve as a sign?
It's filling.
Well, as it's understood rabbinically, tefillin.
Right. And what is the purpose of this sign and reminder? Here it said, note the words here. La'ot al yadcha u'lezikaron bein einecha. Zikaron, a remembrance, as they say, a reminder on your forehead.
Remember Yetziat Mitzrayim.
Right.
God
Remember
did for us.
Yetziat Mitzrayim, but there's another reason that's stuck in here.
I don't know.
It's not just Yetziat Mitzrayim, but
All of the
God's commandments.
right, exactly. That you remember Torah Adonai beficha. God's instruction should be in your mouth. So it's on one hand, we kind of understand this. On the other hand, it's a little bit complicated. And this shall serve you as a sign. What is this? And then what is the sign? What is the reminder? And it's both that the teaching of the Lord may be in your mouth, and also, of course, this is still part of the commemorative rituals of the Exodus.
Can I interrupt just for a second?
Sure.
Yudi, Adler, in dealing with this, makes the point that we don't have tefillin before the 1st century, unfortunately. There's just no evidence. Nothing has ever been found. The earliest material is 1st century, material from Mitzada, and I believe there may have been.
Rabbi Zucker, I don't think there's any question that the pshat of this verse does not mean tefillin. Even the Rashbam said that originally.
Well, we're going to get to
No,
that.
I'm just
We're
throwing
going to
this
get
to
to
you.
all of the
You asked,
commentaries
well,
on
how
it.
did
I have
Adler
no
come up
doubt
with the stuff?
whatsoever that what's being said here.
And this was just an
But-
example.
Yeah,
I
this
took
is
to your
clearly, I
question.
think the
That's all.
rabbis using verses like this and saying that these verses mean tefillin are, yeah, I know it's taken as a commandment from the Torah, but it really is, I think, more like what we call later an ashmachta. In other words, a custom which arose in Second Temple times was adopted by the Jewish people. And then, of course, you need to find some backing for it somewhere in the Kitvei HaKodesh.
Exactly.
So what happened was that these verses were used as backing, but it wasn't like if our traditional Mefarshim weren't aware of the fact that the pshat does not support that. Okay, they were quite aware of the fact that the pshat does not support that, and I don't have any problem with the fact that the pshat doesn't support it either. I mean, there are rabbinic mitzvot. Habakat wrote on Shabbat saying Habakat wrote for Hanukkah, Eruv. I mean, some of the rabbinic mitzvot are one of the most basic mitzvot we have around, So I don't find any particular problem with the fact that something that became a custom in the Second Temple times. I mean, look how many customs we do today that are just a couple of
Can
hundred
we hold
years.
this discussion until we get to some
Yeah.
later
By
material?
all
I
means,
didn't mean to go to
I-
great things. So
I
go-
didn't
take it
start
away,
this.
Rabbi Bob.
I was addressed. I responded.
Will I read, Rabbi?
Pardon me? Yes, please read it. Please
And
keep
when the
reading.
Lord has brought you into the land of the Canaanites, as he swore to you and to your fathers, and has given it to you, you shall set apart for the Lord every first issue of the womb. Every male firstling that your cattle drop shall be the Lord's. But every firstling ass you shall redeem with a sheep. If you do not redeem it, you must break its neck.
Yeah, you can't necessarily use it if it's not redeemed. It still technically belongs to God.
And you must redeem every firstborn male among your children. And when in time to come, your son asks you, saying, what does this mean? You shall say to him, it was with a mighty hand that the Lord brought us out from Egypt, the house of bondage. And when Pharaoh stubbornly refused to let us go, the Lord slew every firstborn in the land of Egypt, the firstborn of both man and beast. Therefore I sacrifice to the Lord every first male issue of the womb, but redeem every firstborn among my sons.
So again, the emphasis on the redemption of the firstborn, of the whole idea behind it is that firstborn belongs to God as an act of gratitude and as a memory of Yetziat Mitzrayim, or in the future it will be a memory. It's correct that, they're just going out of Egypt now, they're just getting the laws, so this is what they will have to do.
And so it shall be a sign upon your hand and as a symbol on your forehead, that with a mighty hand the Lord freed us from Egypt.
Okay, so once again,
That's
the
the end.
repetition. But here the word is a little bit different. In the Hebrew, v'haya ot al yadcha, and we'll come to the spelling a little later, ulatotafot bein einecha, which they translate here as symbol. We often hear the term frontlets, and we'll take a look at what Professor Tigay has to say about it. But here we have in chapter 13, a set of practices that are predominantly designed to be Zecher L'Yetziat Mitzrayim, a remembrance of the Exodus of Egypt, or a reminder, better yet than a remembrance, is a reminder of the of the experience of coming out of Egypt. There's also an element of keeping God's instruction always present with you. But here we have the series of commemorative rituals. That's how all the commentators have a tendency to introduce this. Now,
But what does it mean by you shall redeem every firstborn male? I mean, now when we do a pigeon ben, it's with money, a few coins or whatever. But what did it mean then to redeem?
It said clear cut in Sefer Bamidbar. They even give you the amount, 5 shekalim.
Yeah,
It's
That's
not
where
like
Where
this
did they
is something
say
we
that?
that's later on in the Torah when they
Right.
expand on this law in Sefer Bamidbar.
Okay.
But also even here, you could say that they are, whatever they used for currency, as if firstborn ass is redeemed with the sheep.
The shekel just means 11 ounces of silver. You have to understand it that way.
Yep.
Okay, that's what it meant. In other words, it's a weight, not a coin.
That's also true. Okay.
And archaeologically, they found evidence of silver being used pre Korban Habayit Rishon. Before there were coins, but that they have found small portions of silver in Jerusalem recently.
Yeah, there are a number of articles.
You'll agree that none of this precedes Chizkiyahu. And basically up to that point, silver was simply a medium of exchange by weight.
Mhm.
And there was no such thing as silver coins. Okay. So when you say shekel, it means like ounces or pounds. It does not mean a size or weight of a coin. I'll grant you from the 7th century on, it begins to mean that, but that's not where we are right now.
But why did God want that? I mean, I don't get it. I mean, why the money? Because not everybody has money, or
Support the priesthood in the
The
temple.
symbolic thing, like what's an engagement ring supposed to be? Is the value supposed to be the value of it's simply to show that something has a great deal of value. If I tell you the average person in Tanakh earns 10 shekalim a year, how would it sound to you if you now know that to purchase a firstborn baby, you're paying 5 shekalim? That's half a year's wages.
I'd hope that I just
You
take
know
girls,
anything that you purchased lately that cost half a year's wages?
No.
Okay, so now you go. Now you see what we're talking. In other words, that's a symbol of value. Okay.
like today, an iPhone is
And by
basically
the way, the
half
last
of
chapter
one's
of
salary.
Vayikra
And,
is devoted completely to this. Chapter 27 of Vayikra actually lists the value of each individual age group and gender group, as if you want to say, I'm going to donate my value to the temple for the temple's maintenance, then they tell you how much your value is. When my granddaughter reached her 20th birthday, I was over 60 at the time, and I called her up and said, you know, Tamar, you're worth more than I am now, because she's worth 20 shekalim, and at my age, I was worth 15. But what I'm getting at is that this is all laid out. It's not like if there's any conjecture about this. They give you the numbers and the quantities, and the only thing you have to know is that the shekel is about 11.7.
I don't care about the amount. I just wondered why that
Well,
was.
in purchasing power, you do though, don't you?
Okay, but that's,
And by the way, just if I can throw in it, that gives you an idea what Ephron was doing to Abraham when he demanded 400 shekels.
You got it.
Yeah.
That
That
was
is
gouging.
that's called extortion.
yeah. So basically, again, all of those practices, the avodot that we were reading about, are ways of, are serving as reminders of the Yetziat Mitzrayim, and in particular, you know, the notion, given what God did to the Egyptian firstborn, that really, really the firstborn belonged to God, and out of gratitude and remembrance, it will be required to redeem. And again, the money, as Rabbi Zucker said, will go to the Kohanim, will go to the upkeep of the sanctuary. Okay, now let's take a look at some of the commentaries. First of all, Rashi, just to get some, you know, plain, you know, typical rabbinic understanding. We'll see what Rashi has to say. Do I have a volunteer?
and this shall serve you as a sign. The exodus from Egypt shall be to you as a sign.
Okay, that's kind of interesting because, you know, he's talking presumably, or the way we understand it, about tefillin, but, you know, it's really, again, the exodus from Egypt is kind of a sign. So it's a little bit more abstract than concrete, which everyone was raising before. Okay, go on.
On your hand and as a reminder on your forehead, that you shall write these paragraphs and bind them upon the head and upon the arm.
Okay, so already for Rashi, when he's talking about this, he's understanding this is tefillin. And indeed, we do, you know, we don't have tefillin until a certain point, but the fact is, we do have them fairly early on. We had them by the 1st century. And we have both the physical tefillin that were found in the Dead Sea communities in Masada, and also they're mentioned in pseudepigraphal writings, in Josephus, in the Gospels. So, you know, they're very much there. Okay.
Let me add one point though, quickly again from Adler, that the passages that we are familiar with are not necessarily what they had at that point.
Yeah, we know that.
evidence
Rabbi Popkin and I learned that together.
From Qumran that
Right.
other passages were there.
Yeah, the 10 Commandments were there. That's the most important thing we have to make clear. Okay. In other words, you're quite right. Once upon a time, there was different passages, and probably the inclusion of these two passages is relatively later. I think the original was the Nash Papyrus is the first thing we have. That's the 10 Commandments and the first paragraph.
Paragraph of Shema.
Okay, then they start adding the second paragraph of Kriyat Shema, but not the third. Okay, the third doesn't come into much. There's a whole thing. You know, Moshe Weinfeld wrote a book on Aseret HaDibrot to Kriyat Shema. There's no ands, ifs, or buts about the evolution you're describing, Rabbi Zucker.
Okay, now, you know, just getting a little bit of rabbinic lore, as we noticed, Oh, well, go on, Carol.
On your hand, on the left hand. That is why the word is written yadcha in its full form, not, it is written yadecha, I think.
No, Yadcha.
Oh, yadcha, okay, in
Yeah,
its
but there are
full
two
form.
ways of spelling it.
Oh, okay,
One is with a hey at the end,
Okay.
and one without. Normally, we write it without Yadcha. But
okay, so it's written that way in its full form, not yadcha. In the second section, verse 16, so that we should explain it by dividing this word into two. Yad ha, as meaning the hand that is weak.
yeah, that's just a
Hey.
famous Talmudic interpretation. Here we have down here in the footnote. Everybody can see this, can't they?
Yeah.
Do you want it?
No, it's fine.
Okay, great. So to know Rabbanan, the rabbis taught Yadcha zo small. When it says Yadcha, it means the left hand. Ta omer small. Oh, I know Ela Yamin. You know, you're saying it's the left, but could it not also be the right? Talmud Lamar, the verse teaches Af yadi yasta eretz vimini tafcha shamayim. You know, where's the translation? Even my hand has laid the foundation of the earth, and my right hand has spread out the heavens. In other words, if God's using the right hand to spread out the heavens, well, then he's using his left hand to lay the foundation of the earth. And the two other examples they also give here, it's the sense that aha, yad must mean the left hand. It's fanciful rabbinic interpretation. It's not necessarily the pshat.
But
Okay.
it is all that fanciful, because the fact is not the chaf hay part. The chaf hay part is definitely just, niceties of drash. But the idea that yadcha means in the Tanakh yad small, and yaminecha is your right hand, that you could back up pretty well.
Yeah. Well, actually,
Okay.
and from the
Point
other
to the plain
two,
shot.
and from the other two verses, yes. I mean, I should mention because the other two verses are.
Those
really
are not
good.
the only
Yeah.
two. There's plenty more of them.
Yeah, right. Mhm.
Well, don't we have, like, we say Yemin Adonai Osechayo?
Right,
Yemin
exactly.
Adonai
That's my
Lema.
point. Point is that when the Tanakh wants to say the right hand, it will usually say Yamin. So to go ahead and assume that when it says you should put this on your hand, on your arm, and says Yadcha without Yamin, then you can pretty well assume the Tanakh does mean the left hand
Yeah.
without the Chaf Hey bit.
It's not a crazy interpretation by any stretch of the imagination. And it can indeed, as we see from the couple of examples he gives here, it's certainly a possible interpretation. So, reading the full form, reading the grammatical form of the word, the spelling of the word, actually, that's drasha. But the rest of it is not necessarily so far-fetched. And by the way, this isn't the only explanation the Talmud gives. They go on to talk about other things, and it's got to be on your left because you got to place it, and you got to place it with your right hand. You can't, if you're using your right hand, you can't put it on your right hand. And there's some other discussion in there. Okay, so let's move on to Ibn Ezra.
Yeah, Ibn Ezra says what Rashbam says.
Which we'll get to.
Yeah.
Do
Shows
you want
you
go ahead,
are-
Carol.
Go on.
Carol, go ahead.
There are those who oppose our holy patriarchs and say that for a sign and for a memorial is to be understood in the manner of, for they shall be a chaplet of grace unto thy head and chains about thy head.
Sorry, I
Proverbs
didn't
1,
put that into
verse 9.
English. Go ahead.
They also say that, and you shall buy them for a sign upon your hand, is like bind them continually upon thy heart, tie them upon thy neck, and also that, and you shall write them upon the doorposts of your house, is like write them upon the table of your heart. They furthermore say that it shall be for a sign and for a memorial, means for with a strong hand the Lord brought you out of Egypt, shall drop from your lips.
Okay, so what is Ibn Ezra arguing in this first paragraph? or what is he stating? Now, how are people interpreting these verses?
You are aware of the fact that there's a short and long of an Ezra on Sefer Shemot, and the short one argues exactly what he says there are those
Yeah,
are arguing. Okay. So it may very well be that originally Ibn Ezra basically was perfectly comfortable with that because, remember,
Yeah.
he's just a little bit later than Rashbam, not much later.
right. And
Okay.
there's a whole, but yeah, I happen
But at
to
some
just
point
take-
in his life, he turned on it. You know
Yeah.
what I'm saying? And maybe because Christians adopted it, who knows?
well, that to some extent we'll see is part of the problem. And basically, I just took this from I was taking some as I was thinking about the topic. I just found a lot of useful material in Nechama Leibowitz, not the common ones that we see, but an earlier one, Gilionot L'Iyun Parashat HaShavua. This is from many years ago. Tafshin Chaf Gimel. So only in Hebrew, it's got some great stuff in there. So I just
Those
she
are
happened to-
posted on the internet, Rabbi Poppy. It's not like
Yeah.
this is something you have to
and
knock
I've got
right
it in one, and I've got it in one of my Humashim. I just happen to be working with these texts. That's all. But anyway, what is his issue here? That people are interpreting this.
Well, it's not just to do an action. You're supposed to really get yourself totally involved in it with your heart and your mind. That you don't just put up a mezuzah or whatever on the door and that's it. That you really take it to heart and
Well, it's more than
all
that.
these things.
I'm getting the feeling that there were those who were not laying tefillin, and just as long as we think about it.
Yeah.
Keep in mind that originally people wore them all day,
Yeah.
and not the way we do now.
We're
just
going to
when
come
we're
to
praying.
Rashbam. We're going to come to Rashbam, and we'll have to analyze what he has to say. In fact, I think he's the next commentary. Well, no,
Let's do
he
it.
gave first, but basically, it's closer to what the Rabbi Zucker is saying, that people are interpreting these verses. It's not so much getting to what they're doing or not doing, although it could represent that. But the notion is that these people are saying that you can only interpret this metaphorically. That you don't take this as literally tefillin, but it's really just it's a memorial, it's a reminder. It's not necessarily a physical saying. And then here is what he says in this version of his commentary. Keep going, Carol.
However, this is incorrect. For at the beginning of the book of Proverbs, it is stated, the Proverbs of Solomon. Thus, whatever Solomon henceforth mentions is by way of parable. However, it is not, heaven forbid, written in the Torah that it is metaphoric. Hence, it is to be taken only at face value. We thus will not interpret it except literally. It does not contradict reason if explained according to its plain meaning, like circumcise, therefore, the foreskin of your heart, which has to be interpreted according to the requirements of reason.
Yeah. So here,
There's no foreskin on your heart.
well, right. But here, you have to read things literally, unless it's logically impossible. So he is objecting to the use of this as metaphor. No, we have to understand the literal meaning, as it were, and only we can interpret it metaphorically, allegorically, only when reason demands that we do it. So I'm not saying whether we have to agree or disagree, but it's really kind of a method of interpretation here. We have to understand this in a literal sense, unless it violates logic. Now, let's take a little bit of a side look.
Can we talk about the word oath for a second?
Oh, yeah, sure.
Okay, so the word oath up to this point in the Torah and subsequently usually does mean something visible,
Yeah.
not something that's just metaphorical. In other words, the first oath is the rainbow. The second oath is the Brit Milah.
Mhm.
The third oath is going to be the blood that we're spilling on the doorposts.
Yeah, throughout our
Eventually,
last
we
two
have the rod,
parashiyot, we're talking
you
about
know.
these otot. Exactly.
And it's they're all visible things. So, in other words, it's the issue really isn't so much that oath has to mean something visible. It simply is, what is it that's going to be visible?
Mhm. Absolutely. That's a good point. Now let's just take a look at what Tigay has to say. We should read a modern commentator because he makes some important he's going to make some comments that will reflect on this discussion of how we understand this. Somebody else like to read?
Sure, I'll go ahead.
Okay, thanks.
Where it says, not only must God's
Right.
commandments, not only must God's commandments be remembered and spoken of constantly, but copies of them must also be worn on the body. A similar idea appears in Exodus as well as Deuteronomy, but Deuteronomy modifies the idea in two ways. In Exodus, it is the event of the Exodus or some of its commemorative ceremonies that must be bound to the body, which suggests that binding is meant metaphorically for remembering or cherishing them.
Okay, so he's already raising the idea that perhaps in Exodus, they do mean it metaphorically. Remember, these are different sources in Shmot and in Devarim. Go ahead.
Cherishing them. In Deuteronomy, it is words that must be bound to the body. And the connection with writing the words on doorposts and gates in verse 9 seems to indicate that Deuteronomy means the injunction literally, although this is debated.
Yeah, as we just saw.
Moreover, for Deuteronomy, it is God's commandments in general that must be bound to the body, not only the Exodus or its commemorative rites. According to halakhic exegesis.
Yeah, interpretation.
Selected commandments must be written on parchment and placed in leather capsules called tefillin that are fastened to the arm and forehead.
As we know that it became taken literally, whereas one section may have been originally a metaphorical statement, clearly it became understood as that it should be something physical. By the way,
Rabbi Papi,
yeah.
Where does she get the idea that in Shemot, the commandment is to bind them? I mean, he seems to take that for granted, but I don't see it.
Yeah, I was kind of wondering about that.
Does that?
Yeah, because it's really in Deuteronomy. And of course, you're commenting on Deuteronomy. That's where we have ukshartam, and you shall bind them. I think he was much safer in saying that, Dafka, because in Shmot it doesn't say you shall bind them, they shall be as.
Right.
That would be a greater argument.
Bind them, and you use a word for kashartam, which essentially is literally has to do with goods. People would at least not always, but a good deal of the time. So it's hard to understand it as meaning other than a physical object. Okay.
Yeah, I think he moves away from his original point, which I understand, but then binding is not really what Shmot is saying.
What does exegesis mean again?
Interpretation. So we were joking that at the seminary, we were going to have T-shirts that said Jews for exegesis.
Add a couple words. Exegesis means interpretation of a text,
right?
Not just interpretation in general.
Right.
Okay.
All right, and then the second comment he makes, this is just more of a technical thing.
As a symbol rather as a frontlet, that is a headband. The headband was the characteristic headdress worn in the Syro-Palestinian era in biblical
Area.
times. What?
Area.
Area.
Oh,
Syro-Palestinian
so
area.
Palestinian area in biblical times as shown by illustrations in Egyptian and Assyrian art depicting inhabitants of this area.
Yeah, and I just included the note that he has in his commentary on Deuteronomy. He did an article on Todafot. So it's I think a more correct interpretation. Sarna argues for the symbol, says we don't really know what it means, but Sarna was working on his commentary before Tigay did his work on Deuteronomy. So
The Torah also has an example of something like that. The high priest wore something called tzitz,
it's
which was on his forehead, and tzitz at least sounds like tota. Well, I'm not going any further with it than that.
Yeah,
But all I'm
but-
saying is that the Midrash actually has a problem with where the hell did he put his tefillin if he had
yeah, the
tzitz.
tzitz,
So
yes.
obviously, the issue was live.
Yeah, so, there's no, as we've talked about, there's not necessarily any indication that the high priest wore tefillin, because again, we don't know if it was yet a physical symbol, but, for the rabbis already, well, if he's wearing the tzitz, where's his tefillin gonna go? So now we get to Rashbam.
According to the true meaning, and
Yeah, sorry, this is on the words, L'ot al yadecha.
First time.
Yeah. Just so you know what he's commenting on.
oh, okay.
As a sign on your hand.
As
Yeah.
a sign on your hand, according to the true meaning and exhortation that this memory should be with you permanently, as if the subject matter had literally been inscribed on your hand, similar to place me as a seal on your heart.
So mani chakotam al libecha. Again, you can't really put a seal on the heart. So here Rashbam is arguing that, yeah, it's metaphorical. And we've got all kinds of examples in the Tanakh. So that becomes a little bit of an argument throughout Jewish tradition. Are they speaking metaphorically, or are they speaking literally? As we can see between Ibn Ezra and Rashbam. Interestingly, somebody writing later, what's her name? Leibowitz comments on this interpretation that he could accept that the pshat of the text is metaphorical, even if the halacha is a more literal reading. And she quotes this one scholar as saying, Lo hayashum nigud pnimi b'nafsho. There was no internal opposition within his being and within his soul. Ki pshat mitparesh v'halacha ikar. The pshat, the plain meaning, is clear. It can be explained, but the essence is the halacha. In other words, he's making a distinction between what is the pshat and how is it understood by the halakha. And it's okay that they're different.
I have two questions, Rabbi.
Mhm.
One is, how long does a man have to wear the tefillin if he puts it on in the morning? And also, can the rabbi or anybody put tefillin on all day long and in the afternoon? And why?
Yes. Actually, there's no problem. I mean, as Yehudi mentioned earlier, there were times when people wore the tefillin all day long.
How about today?
Today,
world.
I'm not aware of anybody who does wear them all day long, although I'm
How-
sure there may be.
I've seen in Jerusalem
Forget Jerusalem, forget it.
with them
I'm
on
talking about here in
late
America,
afternoon.
here in America. Never mind what they do over there. It's a whole
Okay,
other world.
here in America, there are people, first of all, we all know that on Tisha B'Av, we put on tefillin in the afternoon. So
Right.
there's no inherent problem with that. Secondly, the halacha says that if you, for some reason, you oversleep and it ends up that you first wake up at noon and you can't put them on any day in the afternoon. Okay.
Anytime.
Yeah.
I've actually seen people do that. People who work for Hatzalah and they're on a night shift, will sometimes end up after they get off shift putting on till in the afternoon. I've actually watched this happen with my own eyes, Charlotte. So yes, the basic halacha is you can wear them in the afternoon, but obviously that's a practice which is, permitted but not encouraged.
They don't like it. They really
Yeah.
don't.
I know is that there's no if you've done it in the morning. I once put on tefillin twice a day on one day. You want to know how that happened? It was on Tisha B'Av, and here's how it works. I davened in the morning in West Orange. And West Orange's shul, ABD, has two minyanim, one a regular Ashkenazic minyan, and they also have the Persians.
The father.
So the Persians put on tefillin at Tisha B'Av in the morning. So and for mincha, so I wasn't going to not put on tefillin. I just put them on without a bracha in mincha. So I ended up putting them on twice a day. I didn't feel any particular discomfort with
And again-
How long do you keep it on?
that. Only during the time you're praying. Once you finish with the prayer, you take a
Well,
walk.
I didn't know that. That's why I'm asking.
Okay, well, yeah, then that's important.
Don't you understand that I had no education growing up, my generation
we
had girls.
understand.
Yeah.
So I'm learning a lot
And,
of things in this
Some of this
program.
stuff is going to come back.
It's never too late to learn Torah.
Right.
That's true.
We've got a worldwide wrap coming up in February, and I'll be using some of this material. I'll be using other stuff as well to do a whole lesson on tefillin. Now, again, coming back to this notion of why do we put on tefillin? What does it represent? And here's more of a general thought or general discussion about avodah in general, and not necessarily just the tefillin, but as we'll see if we get to Ramban. But first of all, let's take a look how Rambam in his Mishneh Torah writes about the tefillin. Now, there are a number of chapters on tefillin. We're not going to read all of it, but it's a very interesting statement here. So would somebody else like to read? Anyone?
I'll read it.
Okay, thanks.
Holiness associated with tefillin is very great.
Yeah, actually, you can see there's a footnote on this, and the holiness associated with tefillin is very great. And we have to take a look at the footnote here.
Earlier in the chapter, Rambam remarks that the tefillin are even more holy than the high priest's headband. So I guess he wore that rather than the tzitz.
Well, here's what he says.
A person should touch his tefillin from time to time during the entire time he is wearing them, so that he will not divert his attention from them even for a single moment. For their holiness surpasses that of the tzitz. Tzitz has God's name written upon it only once, while the head tefillin and similarly tefillin of the arm contain the name 21 times.
Yeah. So
I was raised to actually touch them at the point in Kriya Shema when they're mentioned.
yeah.
You're supposed to kiss you the way, and then kiss. I don't remember what you did. You touched them with your fingers and you kissed them with your hand. Yes, exactly. I mean, I just do that by habit to this day.
You do it in the ashrei,
I do
poteach et yadecha, then you
No,
touch.
not there.
Some people
there.
do that.
Some
But
people do that there too, Rabbi Zucker, but that's not how I was raised. I was
The
just
other-
raised to do it in the two mentions in Kriya Shema.
yeah, that's how
Yeah,
that
of
is
course.
my practice.
Of course.
But also, some people do it in the Berchot HaShachar, in the early morning blessings, when it says, Oter Yisrael
Right,
b'Torah, who
right.
crowns Israel with glory. Because of course,
And-
our
and-
crown of
And
glory
another
is
little,
the
yeah,
Tefillah Shalom
another little
Rosh.
stick on that. There are people, quite a few people, I never realized this until I was older, that on the, normally you take off on Chol Moed, even those people who put on film take them off during the recitation of the morning Shemona Esrei when it's done by the Chazar Tashatz, a repetition.
Yeah, take it off before.
But on the first day of Pesach, a good number of people don't take them off till after Kriyas Torah, because on our first day of Pesach, the Kriyas Torah is the parsha about tefillin, Kadesh Li Kol B'chor.
Right.
So people who wear tefillin during Chol Hamoed will keep them on that one day. You know, because if you ever saw a picture of a person, you know, they tell you it's on Pesach and a person's wearing tefillin, that's how that can take place.
That's interesting, because I that I've never seen. Because you know, I was raised putting tefillin on during Chol Hamoed, but we always took them off before Hallel. So
Well, if you know, I was also raised not to wear them. This Fardim won't even let you into the shul.
oh yeah, well as far as you know the
but
yeah.
the Ashkenazim will let you in.
yeah.
And that we've accepted the idea. You know, in Europe, they basically divided the shuls into two types of shuls. One where people put on tefillin during Chol Hamoed, and one where they didn't. They didn't accept the standard Ashkenazi practice in America.
The prevalent practice in Israel is not to.
Exactly. The
Yes,
people always ask,
correct. Correct.
do you
In
wear
Israel, hardly anybody does.
Yeah. In you know, I'm
But
always
Shaul asked about America.
yeah, in every congregation I've been in, someone's always asking, do you wear tefillin on Chol Hamoed? And I said, the dominant Sephardic practice is not to wear tefillin, and that is the dominant practice in Eretz Yisrael. However, outside of Israel, the dominant Ashkenazic practice is to wear tefillin. But today, I would not necessarily say that's the case, because I've been in shul.
No, it is.
I'm wearing tefillin and Chol Hamoed, but no one else is. And these are people who normally put on tefillin. I mean, you know, God help us, we've got people that don't wear tefillin, period. But so let's go back to
Having
Rambam
some
here.
Sephardic blood, I don't wear them on Chol Hamoed.
Yeah, no, it's like I said, that's becoming a much more dominant custom everywhere. That's what I've seen. Okay, go ahead. As long as a person.
Where are we?
Oh, there. Second sentence.
Yeah, here where my cursor is.
As long as a person, thank you, is wearing tefillin on his head and arm, he will be humble and God-fearing and will not be drawn to frivolous behavior or empty speech. He will not turn his thoughts to evil matters, but rather will direct his heart to words of truth and justice. Accordingly, a person should try to wear tefillin throughout the entire day, for this is the mitzvah associated with them. Among the praises conveyed upon Rav, the student of Rabbeinu HaKodesh, was that he never was seen walking 4 cubits without reciting words of Torah, without tzitzit, and without tefillin.
So there you have your answer on how long one should wear tefillin. But clearly, it's seen as this very holy act. But here, what is the purpose of the tefillin, according to Rambam?
To keep people God-fearing.
Exactly. You know,
Or also to keep your mind focused.
right. Keep your mind focused on God and God's commandments and not distracted by other things. And
So
some,
apparently
How
women wear them
why
because
is my response to the Rambam?
what?
My response to the Rambam on this one is halavai.
Yeah, exactly.
Touche, you need
Yeah.
5 points.
Yeah. So, yeah, like, you know, how many times have I been a Shiva minion where, you know, there's someone standing there in thousand film, they're reading the stock market page in the paper. Okay, go on.
But
We're only
even
got
in
time for
school,
this
people
other.
just get accustomed to it, and they, you know, as far as they're concerned, it doesn't really affect your behavior in school.
Yeah, no,
whether
I
they're
think
wearing
it definitely does.
This is an ideal. This isn't real.
A person must show great care in the observance of the mitzvah of mezuzah because it is an obligation which is constantly incumbent upon everyone. Through its observance, whenever a person enters or leaves the house, he will encounter the unity of the name of the Blessed Holy One and remember his love for him. Thus, he will awake from his sleep and his obsession with the vanities of time and recognize that there is nothing which lasts for eternity except the knowledge of the creator of the world. This will motivate him to regain full awareness and follow the paths of the upright.
Can I
Whoever
ask you,
wears-
what does the word everyone mean here? Does that include women or just? Still
Well, to
just
some
men.
Where's
well,
the
to some
Hebrew?
Every woman, where's everyone?
Where's the Hebrew? Let's
Uh,
find
yeah.
Adam. Adam.
Dash
So that,
in the
yeah,
bottom
Adam
middle,
could at
yeah.
least
I have
conceivably.
the nation Chovat HaKol. It's Chovat HaKol to me.
Well,
Yeah,
yeah,
but there was
that's the
also a
first
word
one.
Adam. You see
Yeah,
the word
Chayav
Adam?
Adam.
Well,
But
that's,
Adam could mean women too. So as a practical matter, listen, we all know why women got exempted from wearing tefillin. But, this wasn't done in order to discriminate against them. It
no,
was
I'm not
done.
saying it was. I'm just curious.
No, it was,
who
it
it
was, it was
refers-
done, and it's clearly, if you look at the plain Pasha Pshat, first of all, remember, we haven't even determined for sure whether the Pshat even means tefillin, as Rabbi Papni so well pointed out. The Pshat could easily be interpreted metaphorically. Okay, but if you assume what it means to put on a sign, that it's quite possible that women did it too. In fact, they actually have an Agadah in the Talmud that this Michal Bat Shaul put on tefillin. And by the way, why do you think they picked her out of all people to be the one woman in Tanakh that they can say without any ands, ifs, or buts was wearing tefillin?
She's
What do you
the
think
one-
that's about? It's very clear what that's about. Michal Bat Shaul had no children, and they make a big point about the fact that she had no children. And she never had any children in her lifetime. So there was no particular reason to exempt her because she didn't have any children to take care of. Okay. In other words, this is the rabbinic mindset. Okay. It's not that
also-
the rabbis were fundamentally against women putting on tefillin. They weren't.
I'd just like to finish this last part. Also, Chayav ala kol, it could also be mezuzah is, not mitzvah shazman brama. It's not a positive time-bound commandment. So it certainly could very well be something that women are required to do.
Believe me, I'm not looking to do it. I'm just saying,
Well,
did
you
God
should.
want-
More than welcome.
did God want women to have some kind of reminder? I guess the women were not slaves in Egypt. The men were.
Yes, they were.
Were the women actually slaves?
Yes,
They had to make bricks
They
too.
just had different kinds of work.
yeah. But
Okay.
certainly, it's a mitzvah, there are plenty of mitzvot that women are required to do.
Yeah.
So it's not that they're always looking for exemptions for women.
The whole point is that if a mitzvah is time bound, and it forces a woman to do something at a certain time that might be very, very difficult to do, given the
Yeah,
fact
I
that she
get
has babies to take care of.
Yeah.
That's the only kind of commandments that women were ever exempted from
Yeah.
anyhow.
Again, just to Shell, if you can just finish up this last paragraph.
Where,
Of the Rambam. whoever?
whoever wears tefillin or,
Yeah,
and now, okay, whoever wears tefillin on his head and arm, wears tzitzit on his garment, and has a mezuzah on his entrance, can be assured that he will not sin because he has many who will remind him.
in other words, many objects that will remind him.
These are the angels who will prevent him from sinning, states the angel of God camps around those who fear him and protects them.
So this psalm
right.
is a psalm we read at the conclusion of Shabbat, psalm we read as we accompany the casket to the grave. Very beautiful line. And a very interesting interpretation by Maimonides, not surprisingly a rational interpretation, that the angels that protect a person, not literally angels, but the mitzvot that we observe. When we observe the mitzvot, our mind is filled with God and kept away from things that we shouldn't be spending time on. So for Rambam, the purpose of tefillin, he's gone away from Zecher L'Tziat Mitzrayim, although I don't think that he would deny that that's part of the mitzvah, but that these mitzvot, the mezuzah, tzitzit, tefillin, are really to keep one's thoughts focused on God and God's commandments. It's interesting to see Rambam Ramban is very, very extensive on this, and we'll probably do this when we for the worldwide wrap in a couple of weeks in the study session then. But he is the one who does, by the way, Yehudi had mentioned before, concerns about how the others interpret how they would interpret the Torah metaphorically. Maybe it's not in Ramban here, but it is somewhere. That there was a concern,
He'd never buy that.
yeah, no, he would not buy it.
He
But
would say to people who do that are road fab shop.
yeah,
You don't have to-
exactly.
Yeah.
Except that there are those that were concerned about how Christians interpreted the Bible, and we didn't want to interpret the
Right.
same way. So just a little bit on tefillin. And like I said, we'll cover more when we get to not in our class, but on Sunday. I think it's the 12th. Am I right?
Right,
Yeah,
right.
Sunday the 12th. For our worldwide wrap services at 9:30. Teach people how to put on tefillin and daven. And then we'll have brunch. And during the brunch, we'll also do a lot of studying on tefillin. So toda rabah, everybody.
Before we conclude, if you are interested, I have an article in the Torah.com on judging Pharaoh.
Oh,
Yeah,
On-
send
on-
it out
on-
to everybody. Send it to Rabbi.
in the Torah.com that was written a couple of years ago, but the Torah.com for this week's parasha
okay. Like I said,
on weighing Pharaoh's heavy heart.
Okay. Send it
which he
out.
wasn't buried with anyway.
Just
there.
go to the Torah.com and this week's parasha. I think
yeah.
it's the third
Okay, thank you.
article.
Oh,
Bye-bye.
I don't have the form it's in currently. I don't have because our editor, Rabbi Farber, updated it a little bit of stuff, added a few more things in the
Right.
footnotes.
I will try and find it and send out the link. And you can just go to the Torah.com to this week's parasha.
Exactly,
It will have it listed there.
exactly.
So Shabbat Shalom, everyone.
Shabbat shalom.
Hope
Thank
the rest of the
you.
week is good. And thank you.
See you tomorrow night.
Yeah. Yeah, don't forget, Rabbi Zucker's teaching tomorrow
to
night.
worry, not to
Very
worry.
interesting topic.
Indeed.